Hi fight fans, and welcome to another MMA Network video. MMA is an unforgiving sport that requires young blood, and the longer a fighter keeps fighting, the more likely he'll end his career with tragic defeats. Seeing our favorite fighters getting badly beaten at the later stage of their careers is not only hard to watch, but also sad when we remember how good they used to be. It's difficult to determine when the ideal time is to hang up the gloves, since some athletes reach their peaks in their mid-20s, while others are getting that momentum in their late 30s. Therefore, some elite competitors stayed in this sport for too long, only to receive brutal beatdowns when they were past their prime. In this video, we will cover the most tragic downfalls of elite fighters and their heartbreaking defeats, caused mainly by brutal knockouts that were genuinely hard to watch. Luke Rockhold. Making his MMA debut on July 24, 2007, for nearly a decade, Luke Rockhold was a force to be reckoned with. The former Strikeforce and UFC champion was a complete competitor who was as good on the ground as on the feet. Rockhold wasn't only winning fights, but he possessed that killer instinct to end the contest before the final bell, submitting and TKOing opponents with heavy ground and pound strikes. On September 10, 2011, Luke defeated Jacare Souza to become the Strikeforce middleweight champion. He defended his belt twice before signing with the UFC, where he went on a 4-fight winning streak before he was scheduled to fight Chris Weidman for the UFC middleweight title. Rockhold destroyed Weidman, causing him his first MMA loss. Still, in the first title defense, Michael Bisping ruined Luke's plans by KOing the American in the first round. Rockhold rebounded by TKOing David Branch in his next bout, but then his career went from bad to worse. On February 10, 2018, Yoel Romero brutally knocked Luke and, moments after, went after the still wobbled Rockhold, giving him a comforting kiss. The following year, the American suffered another brutal KO loss by Jan Blachowicz, who was eager to introduce Luke to the legendary Polish power. Finally, on August 20, 2022, the former champion returned to the octagon after 3 years of absence against Paulo Costa. In a fight where Luke wasn't even a shadow of his former self, he was again defeated, this time via unanimous decision. This loss sealed his departure from the company. Recently, he signed with Bare Knuckle Boxing, where he received a hard-to-watch defeat by Mike Perry, who defeated Luke via TKO, knocking his teeth out in the process. Once a dominant force in MMA, nowadays, Luke Rockhold could not catch a break, and it looks like retirement is probably the right decision for the American. BJ Penn. BJ Penn is one of the MMA's most influential pioneers who made the lightweight division enjoyable to watch. Regardless of the lighter weight, the prodigy was knocking people out on their feet and then submitting them on the ground, becoming lightweight and welterweight UFC champion in the process. Even the UFC president, Dana White, credits him as the first crossover pay-per-view star for the lighter weight divisions. However, BJ Penn is a concrete example of a fighter who fought way longer than he should have, which can be noticed by the last 7 fights on his resume. After securing the world title, the prodigy fought the upcoming contender Frankie Edgar, who beat BJ Penn in their initial bout and the immediate rematch via unanimous decision. This should have indicated that Penn should consider retirement, but the Hawaiian was not ready to give up this sport yet. Although he won a spectacular 21-second KO victory against the UFC legend Matt Hughes next and scored a draw against John Fitch in the following bout, this is the point where Penn should have hung up the gloves. Considering the outcome of the next 7 bouts, BJ Penn lost to Nick Diaz and Rory McDonald on the judges' scorecards in the following 2 fights. On July 6, 2014, Penn was scheduled to fight Frankie Edgar for a 3rd time, but this time, the answer ended the bout before the final bell, scoring a TKO victory over the prodigy. After almost 3 years of absence, BJ Penn returned to the octagon against the rising new prospect Yair Rodriguez. The Mexican striker put on a masterpiece performance against Penn, beating him badly on the feet. It almost looked like Yair was trying new striking techniques on the aging Penn, delivering jumping kicks and various combos. The bout ended in the 2nd round when Rodriguez delivered a vicious front kick followed by punches. In the next fight, the prodigy lost to Dennis Silva on points and was stopped by Ryan Hall via heel hook submission. Finally, on May 11, 2019, BJ Penn fought Clay Guida and lost the bout unanimously. He hasn't fought since, but considering the downfall with the heartbreaking losses, he should probably stay away from the octagon and enjoy his retirement. By the way, if you enjoyed our videos so far, please make sure to press the like and subscribe buttons. Anderson Silva. You can't talk about the greatest MMA fighters of all time without mentioning Anderson the Spider Silva. The Brazilian was one of the most decorated strikers who delivered jaw-dropping knockouts during his prime, as well as an elite grappler who could end a fight on the ground. He was one of the most dominant UFC champions, with the longest title reign in UFC history at 2,457 days. It almost seems like he was invincible, and besides Chael Sonnen, who nearly beat him, nobody could come even close to solving the Silva riddle to defeat the Brazilian. However, the Spider's downfall started on July 6, 2013, in a fight against the new generation of undefeated athletes, Chris Weidman. The American shocked the world by knocking Silva out in the second round, which was an overture to an immediate rematch. By the end of the year, the two met again, but this time, the outcome was absolutely gruesome, as was the beginning of Silva's downfall. After landing a low kick, Weidman checked the kick, which caused Anderson to break his leg. This was one of the MMA's scariest and saddest moments, as the Brazilian was screaming in pain. It looked like his career might be over, and although Silva's body was screaming to stop, his spirit was crying never. After a year of recovery, Anderson returned in the octagon against Nick Diaz, in a fight which initially won, but was later overturned to no contest due to a failed drug test. In 2016, he fought Michael Bisping and Daniel Cormier, and both fighters beat the Brazilian on the judges' scorecards. Anderson earned a close decision against Derek Brunson next, but then after 2 years of layoff, he lost a unanimous decision to Israel Adesanya. On May 11, 2019, the Spider fought Jared Cannonier. His opponent kept targeting Silva's leg and won the contest via leg kick TKO. In the following year, Anderson was TKO'd by Uriah Hall in the fourth round, which led to his UFC departure. Once considered the greatest UFC fighter of all time, untouchable and unbeatable, he was now on a 3-fight losing streak, losing 7 of his last 9 fights. Chuck Liddell. The Iceman did not ask for that nickname. He earned it by knocking people out ice cold. He is a former UFC light heavyweight champion who achieved a 16-6 UFC record, with 16 of his wins coming by way of knockout. Liddell was a fearless brawler who wasn't afraid to go toe-to-toe with any opponent. He had a solid takedown defense that helped keep the fight standing, where he delivered the heavy punches until the opponent lay down on the canvas. His entertaining style was the reason why Chuck was credited for helping bring MMA into the mainstream of American sports and entertainment, after earning an incredible record of 20-3, defending his UFC title 4 times in the process. The Iceman was scheduled to fight Quinton Jackson on May 26, 2007. Rampage scored a KO victory against Liddell, and then the Iceman lost his next fight against Keith Jardine via split decision. When Chuck Liddell won against Wanderlei Silva in the next bout, delivering a fight of the year, it seemed that the American was not done fighting and would set his eyes on reclaiming the belt. However, his plans were ruined by Rashad Evans, who brutally knocked Chuck out cold. The Iceman returned the following year against Mauricio Rua, only to be knocked out before finally receiving a career-ending KO loss by Rich Franklin, who viciously shut Chuck's lights off in the first round. Chuck Liddell finally called it a career, and it seemed he would finally enjoy his retirement. Unfortunately for him and his fans, the Iceman decided to make an MMA return after 8 years of absence against his old rival Tito Ortiz. The two met on November 28, 2018 on a Golden Boy Promotions card, in a fight that was hard to watch for all MMA fans. The Iceman was not even a shadow of his old self. He moved slowly, and it was apparent that he didn't belong there. Watching him get brutalized by Ortiz before getting knocked out in the first round was one of the biggest heartbreaking moments in MMA history. That was another indication that MMA requires young blood and is not the place for old athletes. Tony Ferguson. Unlike other UFC fighters on this list, Tony Ferguson never won the undisputed UFC fighter, which makes his MMA story even more tragic. From 2013 to 2019, El Cucuy went on a 12-fight winning streak, most of which were wars for the ages, consisting of unique finishes before the final bell. At a time when Khabib Nurmagomedov ruled the UFC lightweight division, MMA fans were eager to see the Eagle fighting Ferguson for the undisputed title. Still, unfortunately for us fans, that fight never capitalized. Instead, on May 9, 2020, El Cucuy was scheduled to fight Justin Gaethje for the interim UFC lightweight championship. Although Tony was a big favorite in that fight, he was stopped by Gaethje, who delivered a heavy beating on him, ending the contest via 5th-round TKO. In the next bout, Ferguson fought Charles Oliveira, who basically discovered the blueprint on how to defeat Tony effortlessly, which was taking him down and controlling him there. Oliveira won a big unanimous decision victory, granting him a shot at the lightweight title. Beneil Dariush used the blueprint, implemented the same game plan against Oliveira, and controlled El Cucuy on the ground and edged him on the judges' scorecards. This was his third loss in a row, but the worst was yet to come. On May 7, 2022, Ferguson fought Michael Chandler and was viciously knocked out via a front kick to the chin. The scary thing was that Tony was known for his endurance and durability to take punches, yet Chandler delivered a kick that sent Ferguson to the Shadow Realm. Tony fought Nate Diaz 4 months later and tapped into a deep guillotine in the 4th round. And if you think it can't get any worse, you are probably wrong, because yes, it can. On the massive UFC 291 event, Ferguson was back to action against Bobby Green, who is mainly a striker and uses only his grappling defensively. Nevertheless, Green was battering Tony for 3 rounds before securing a beautiful arm triangle choke, giving El Cucuy only 2 options: tap or nap. Seeing an elite fighter who destroyed 12 opponents in a row, only to be brutally knocked out and submitted in the last 6 bouts, is genuinely heartbreaking. Tony's downfall is one of the most disappointing MMA stories of our time, and sadly, we will never see him fighting at the top level again. And what do you guys think? Do you agree with our selections? Whose downfall do you consider the most depressing in MMA? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you would like to watch more videos like these, please make sure to like and subscribe.